Thank you so much. Well, as Mia said, we will be discussing DevOps, and hopefully I will be able to change your mind about what DevOps is and what DevOps isn't for the next 45 minutes or hour or 30 minutes, or depending on how many questions there are and so on. My name is Martin Comstedt, and I work as a change management consultant. We mainly do IT related stuff, and lately we have become more and more into Agile, DevOps, and all these modern ways of looking at development. We come from a history of ITIL and Lean, but we bring those experiences into our daily work as well. My background is from the tech area. I worked as a systems developer for a very long time, and realized that I was in a context which had a very good agile environment, and then I realized I need to help the world get to that point as well. So here I am, consulting with change management, mainly in Agile and DevOps. And the company I work with and co-own is Onbird. You can find more information about us on Onbird.se. So today we will be talking about DevOps, and hopefully you will be able to see that it's not too far away from the legacy it has with Lean and ITIL and Agile and all those other buzzwords existing in our modern society. If you have any questions, please write them in the chat, and Mia will fetch them and ask me. If it's relevant, I will try to answer it right away. If we can wait and do it after the webinar or at the end of the webinar, I will do so. So we will be talking about flows. We will be talking about more flows. We will cover some principles of DevOps, and also talk a bit about measurements. And what I hope you'll bring is how you see this as being the natural consequence of working Agile, as I'm quite assuming everyone is doing, basically. There are few organizations out there still hesitant of working Agile, but most people say they are. So I'm assuming you all had some sort of experience with Agile anyway, or at least heard the word. So, and no, I won't be doing any PowerPoints, because PowerPoint karaoke is I really dislike that. So I'll be drawing on this. So what we see here is flow. And with some very generic parts. In here we can see we have some sort of, this is a development flow. So I assume you all are in some of these parts. Discovery, being creative, innovation, all that. We plan our work, we do our work, we ship our work, we deploy our work, and we maintain and handle our work when it comes to production. So every one of you should be able to feel that, okay, I'm in this box, or I'm in this box, or I'm in this box. Where is the agile part, assuming everyone works more or less agile? I'm not waiting for an answer, I'm just gonna go. So usually we put the agile somewhere around here. we plan our work. We have product backlogs, we have sprint backlogs, and we code and configure and test and do whatever we do, and then we ship our work. Agile does define deployments and shipping to production, but it doesn't give you any procedures for it. No ceremonies, no nothing. So it tends to be sort of forgotten. You have all the focus on having your dailies, having your reviews, having your retros, having your plannings, and so on. So now, whenever we come to the concept of releasing stuff, it's sort of, yeah, let's do it as we always did, every 2 months or so. And this poses a problem, because where does value exist, or where is value created? Out here, right? Somewhere around here. And we focus so much on being very fast and very transparent and optimizing for everything in this code phase. However, value is not until the customer actually can use whatever we code back here. So some sort of problem emerges. Because ever so often, we also have a bunch of people working somewhere around here. Sometimes we call them ops, sometimes we call them the bad guys, sometimes we call them, yeah, the others. And in too many cases, we're not very good friends. That's a problem. Because these guys, the agile guys, they work close, hopefully, with the business, and business wants change all the time. They want improvements, they want bug fixes, they want new features, they want all these kind of cool stuff. The ops guys, being responsible for the stability of the production environment, they don't want changes all the time. They want to have a stable server environment. So whenever these guys say, hey, we want to release stuff, and these guys say, no, please don't, because you release crap. Whenever things come to us, they break, and we get the blame for it. And that's one of the starting points for the movement of DevOps. Obviously, someone has thought of this and realized quite early that we need something bigger than Scrum or Agile. So with a bit of history here, I would say that IT deserve better than Gantt charts, but they're still there. I saw one just yesterday. So if we try to write some sort of time frame here, it started really early. One of the key components of DevOps is something called continuous integration. That was coined already in 1991, so way before Agile, way before DevOps. But it shows that whatever DevOps brings, it has a very long legacy, and it has stolen or thought of the same ideas that people way before us have thought of. So starting in 2001, the Agile Manifesto was created by a bunch of bearded men in Utah. They decided, or they had realized that, okay, working with traditional project management methods wasn't the best way to go in IT. IT in its nature has the possibilities to work in other and more effective ways. So Agile Manifesto, yep, And then it took off. Like 4 or 5 years later, everyone was starting to discuss, okay, this agile thing, how do we work agile? What is agile? And Scrum emerged. Trivia: the first time Scrum as a development model is mentioned is actually 1986. Read up on that; it's very interesting. But Agile didn't become a buzzword until 2001 and forward. And already in 2008, people started realizing that, okay, Agile is not enough. We're having issues with the ops guys. So 2 guys named Andrew Clay and Patrick Dubois met up at a conference and met up in a conference room, and they wanted to do one of those bird of a feather sessions, you know, where you discuss stuff from scratch and try to think of something new. So they announced, okay, we will be talking about agile infrastructure here in this room. Come join us, please talk about this. No one showed up. People were all busy trying to understand, what is Scrum? How does it work? What's the ceremonies? So they became friends, only the 2 of them, and started discussing. At another conference in 2009, Flickr, the image service on the internet, bragged about having 10 deploys a day. And then something happened, because people realized, aha, this is a game changer. Deploying stuff more often is a game changer. And all of a sudden, the discussion on agile infrastructure became trendy. And the first DevOps conference was also held in 2009. So the movement started already there. In 2013, a book called The Phoenix Project was released. And even though there isn't a plethora of good DevOps books, this one actually became one of the must-reads in the business. It's a novel about a company about to fail miserably, and with the help from DevOps theory, they actually, I wouldn't say succeed, because that would be spoiling the book, but read it. It's very good. And notice here, okay, let's put 2022 here, but that's not the end of the scale. We have quite some way to go before we reach the glorious coffee, which is at the end of the rainbow. So in this book and in DevOps theory, we talk about the 3 ways of DevOps, trying to define what DevOps really is. We will talk about a bit later the misunderstandings of DevOps, what it is, what it isn't. But if you see it as a movement and not some sort of just tech bonanza, then this is it. The 3 ways of DevOps. The first way: know your flow. As you saw here, and as you probably all have in your organizations, we have an entire flow. Someone has an idea, and it ends with the customer using that idea. And it has all these steps in between. In Agile, we focus a lot on this flow. In Ops, we focus a lot on this. But we're kind of missing out on things, both on this end and in this end. possibly also here in the middle. So know your flow. That's the first way. The second, feedback. We want to know how we're doing all the time. So in a mature DevOps environment, we keep track of at least these steps. And we're able to get feedback from here back to here. We're able to get feedback from here back to here. Maybe we can get feedback from here back to here as well. Well, definitely within this, and it probably goes back to planning, and then this feedback goes back here because something failed. We need to fix that. Okay, deployment, something failed here. What do we do? I mean, feedback. We live for feedback. So that's the second way of DevOps. The third way, the culture. We need to create an experimental culture for us to be able to handle all the feedback we get from all the parts of our flow. We need to be experimental. We don't know what the best solution would be to handle an error in production or an error in the deployment process. We need to experiment. And so we need to work iteratively, and we also need to be courageous. We need to have the guts to actually try stuff and fail. And that we recognize from Agile, right? We work in iterations, we try stuff, we evaluate stuff. That's the most important part of Agile. Do something, test it, get feedback really quick. Did it work? Didn't it work? If it works, great, keep on doing it. If it doesn't work, redo it in another way. Try something else. And that's what we want to do in the DevOps culture as well. So as you can see, DevOps as a movement fetches a lot of ideas from the Agile. And why should we care about this then? I mean, we already work Agile or we work with some other framework. Why isn't it important to have our flow, to have control of our flow? Well, because we have to, basically. A scientist called Carlota Perez created the principles of evolution a few years ago, where she looked at all the big technical revolutions that has happened in mankind's history. The Industrial Revolution in the end of 1700s and the beginning of 1800s. The age of steam and railways in the mid 1800s. The age of steel and heavy engineering in the end of the 1800s. The age of oil and mass production in the 1900s. And the fifth big one is the age of software and digital, which started in the 1970s. We haven't seen the end of that, so we're just in the beginning. But she did some research and concluded that all parts of these big transitions in how people work, create, buy, use, and handle stuff all have three phases. One is the installation phase, where someone has an idea of something new and creates it. Hey, why don't we use water to boil it and create machines that can use that power to move? Okay, and then all of a sudden people start imitating that idea. Ooh, I can build one of these machines. Ooh, I can build one of those. Ooh, steam engine, right? So that's the installation. And then there's the deployment period. Where basically all the companies that survive use this. it has become a must. You must use this to actually survive in today's society or environment. This thing here in the middle is called a turning point. And in the different eras, this turning point has been, I mean, it's not in a year or two, it's a bigger time span than that. But in just a few years, things has gone from, the innovative people are doing stuff, to, okay, everyone that wants to survive has to do this. And this goes for DevOps as well, because so far we have been in the installation period. People use IT with old project management methods, which is kind of slow and not very innovative and not very customer facing. But right now we're in this turning point period. We can see that the companies that has adapted to the whole thinking of optimizing the whole flow are the ones succeeding. So whenever we get to the deployment period, if you don't keep track of your flows and handle feedback and have an experimental culture and be able to do very agile development, moving whenever move is needed, you will not be one of the companies that survive. Might seem a bit dramatic, but looking at history, it's true. So back to the flow. The DevOps framework claims that we cannot focus on only one part of the flow. We cannot be only agile and optimize here, because what counts is the entire flow. So we need to have the entire flow in mind. When I talk to people about DevOps, it's a lot of focus on these parts. Automating everything and having a lot of tech tools. It's Kubernetes, it's Docker, it's pipelines, it's CI/CD. And people tend to think that, oh, that's where DevOps is. Let's become more DevOps. Good, because if we only focus on the agile part, then we're only optimizing this part of the flow. But if we're only optimizing this part of the flow, then we're missing out on this part and the customer value here. So we're going to have to broaden our minds a little bit. And bear with me, I mean, good tech is needed to optimize the whole flow. We do need that. Nothing wrong with that. And we need to start somewhere, but we tend to forget the ends of the flow. So I can't be talking about DevOps without discussing, or at least saying something about CI/CD. So for if you want to bring buzzwords from this webinar, bring CI/CD. Say it every once in a while. Yeah, you know, it's really cool to have good CI/CD. Yeah. CI, continuous integration, meaning we actually handle what we deliver from the coding stage here in a controlled manner with common code bases and building servers and so on. So if you hear the word build server or Jenkins in your organization, it probably means you have at least some sort of continuous integration going on. Next step is continuous delivery. Delivery. It means you have automated your flow a bit further. You're not just building the code or handling the code in a common manner. You also sort of ship it and move it to production environments or test environments and so on. And it's very close to the last arrow, that is continuous deployment. And the only difference between continuous delivery and continuous deployment is that continuous deployment actually deploys something to production. So you have automated the flow all the way from some developer's computer all the way up until the customer can actually reach it and use it. So that's the difference between continuous delivery and continuous deployment. And those are really vital parts because this part of the flow tends to be a bit slow otherwise, filled with manual steps. And whenever people do something, we tend to do something wrong. If our job is to move code from one server to another, eventually we're going to get bored and we're going to do something wrong. We're going to send it to the wrong server or something. So there are a lot of things in these steps that computers actually do much better than humans. So let's automate those. And that's where these concepts come in handy. The ends of the scale are a bit harder to automate because there will be analysis and feelings and knowledge involved, which are kind of hard to automate through computers. But the steps that we can automate, all the tech, very important because we want to have the whole flow as speedy as possible. But as I said, we're still missing out on some things. One is here. Whenever things go out into production and they actually work, what happens then? And how is that connected to what happens over here, the innovation phase and discovery phase? Well, because feedback from here is vital for this. If we want to be able to please our customers' needs in the best way, we need to know how are they using our services? How are they using us or our products? So we need the feedback arrow there. And by only looking at tech or agile, we're not catching that. The whole flow, very important. So there are quite a few people that have tried to define what is DevOps. There is the DevOps Agile Skills Association. We have DevOps Institute. Plenty more. I was at a DevOps conference a few years ago, and the trend then was to, as the giveaway from all the cool companies, they gave out socks. That's apparently the thing that IT needed in 2019. So I had socks with all these cool DevOps institutes and associations. I can't remember any of them except DevOps Institute and DASA, meaning DevOps Agile Skills Association. But this DASA, they have tried to define 6 principles that we need to adhere to becoming more DevOps. I thought I'd just go through them really quick. Customer-centric. We need to focus on what the customer wants, and that we have heard before. Agile wants to focus on what the customer wants. Lean wants to focus on what the customers wants. ITIL wants to focus on what the customer wants. Everyone is talking about, yeah, focus on what the customer wants. And we still have to define that for every new framework we create, because apparently we're not very good at it. We need to know who's our customer, what are they doing, how are they using us, why are they using us, what needs do they have, how can I be more proactive, and so on. And this means not only the products and services that we give to the customers or sell to the customers. It also means that, okay, if our business model doesn't work, then we might need to reorganize towards a business model that actually works. And that's one of the big issues I see now, especially in big organizations, when we try to find out, okay, the customer wants this, yeah, but our organization is set like this, so we cannot do that. We cannot build fully cross-functional teams because our organization doesn't support that. Okay, but our customers want faster changes. Yeah, but yeah, you know, we need to have this focus on customers. If we need to reorganize or pivot, we must do that. The next one is create with the end in mind, meaning we cannot work in silos. We must know independently of where we are in the flow, okay, who's going to be using this and why and how. I'm sure you all have been in projects where you're just some sort of tiny cog in the machinery, and you're not expected to know that much on why the things you do are being used, how they are being used, and by whom. We must get away from that. We need to work more like true product companies. Everyone in the flows knows who is the customer, why are they doing this, what do they want, how can I do my part as good as possible. Happy customers pay our salary. That's the base of it. Next one is end-to-end responsibility. It goes a bit hand in hand with the previous one. If we're not allowed, or if we don't know who our customers are, then we can't be responsible for the outcome. So if the customer is not happy, one, it's never going to reach me because I never talk to the customer. Or two, it's none of my business. I'm just doing as I'm told. That means going from silo to silo to silo to silo to the customer means, okay, if the customer isn't happy, who's going to take care of that? Probably no one, because we're so happy just to have put something through our entire flow. We need to have a concept grave responsibility within our product. And to do that, we should have cross-functional teams. Yet another buzzword. Everyone is talking about cross-functional teams and how good it is. But we need to have that, because cross-functional teams means that we have all the competences in one team to handle one product or functionality. That means less handovers, less dependencies, and a faster flow. And a faster flow is what we want. Discussions on cross-functional teams and who should know what, and hey, I'm a front-end developer, do I need to know everything about databases all of a sudden? Maybe, maybe not. There's an old rule of thumb. Let me change color. Three, 1, 1, 3. So whenever a product owner or similar comes to the team saying, hey, this is a thing I want you to do, you should have at least 3 people raising their hand saying, hey, I can do that. I have the competence for it. And to get there, every person should be able to do 3 different kind of things. Side note, if anyone knows where this rule of thumb comes from, please come back to me with that, because I've Googled the shit out of it and I still don't know, but I've heard it and I like it. So science or not behind it, I don't know, but it's a good rule of thumb. Moving on. Continuous improvement. And it's funny because every framework of any sort has discussed this continuous improvement. We must always be better. We must always improve. Since, I don't know, Lean started it in the 50s, saying, hey, we need some sort of process to improve as well. We cannot stagnate and become what we already are. We need to be better. Agile does it, Lean does it, ITIL does it, and DevOps does it. Apparently, we as humans are not very good at improving, or at least wanting to improve. We're quite fat and happy whenever we succeed with something. We just, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, okay. No, we should be better. And to be able to handle all the feedback and all the optimizations we do in our development flows or value streams, we need to be able to adapt. We need to minimize waste. We need to optimize the speed. So we need to be better. Famous quote here, if it hurts, do it more often. If releasing stuff or deploying stuff to the production environment in your organization is painful, time-taking, and sort of energy draining, do it more often, because that will make it easier. We shouldn't just shoot it for the future. Yes, and the last part, we have touched upon that. Automate everything. Here's where the tech part comes in. But we need to automate, because automation of our flow means speed and quality. A computer is very good at doing the same thing over and over again, very fast. Humans suck at that, actually, over time. So whatever there is to automate, do it, because that will help us get speed through our flow. And to change, we need speed. To adapt, we need speed. So even if there are extremely technical areas where we automate, like spin up new environments and ship code and test code and reload servers and so on, do that. But also look at what other parts can we automate. Can we have digital systems handle can we have digital systems handle the handover between business and IT? How do we do the handover? Is there automation to be done? Maybe, maybe not. We need to have that in mind. Automation is a good thing. And a lot of these focus around teams. How do we handle teams? And we need some sort of strategy for that. Every once in a while, we talk about, okay, what parts of our development can we handle ourselves, and what parts do we let someone else handle? Where is the ops part? Where is the dev part? Who handles what? What should be run by someone outside the organization, and what should be run by us? I tried to do some sort of stack here with the topmost layer being app, then data, runtime, middleware, operative system, virtualization, server, storage, and network. It's a sort of standard stack. For a few examples, infrastructure as a service. Then we'll let someone else handle everything up to here. So we get basically a bunch of servers, and then we handle everything that is on a server is on our side. This means we have made some sort of decoupling between what's up here and what's down here. If we would do it platform as a service, we would probably separate applications and data layers being on our side, and then have everything below it run by someone else, be it in the organization or outside the organization. And the third classic example, of course, software as a service. SaaS, where we actually let someone else handle everything. There are plenty more of these AAS something. And you can, just for the fun of it, try to plot them out in one of these stacks to see where they belong. But this means we need to have some sort of strategy. Okay, the cross-functional teams, how do we handle these? Are we handling the app and the data? Okay, then maybe we need to have teams where cross-functionality is here somewhere. That's the competence we need when creating teams. This one is defined by someone else. And if we do all these layers, I would define that as on-prem, meaning we handle everything by ourselves. And then we need to have the competence in the teams defined by that. One of the big things in DevOps, and that is we need for this to be able to give feedback and handle feedback between our parts in the flow. Measurements, very important. Measurements have always been and will always be important, but considering we need to handle all these feedback errors between the parts of our flow, we need to measure stuff, because that's one great thing, one great way of getting feedback. In the DevOps report, you know, all these organizations give out every once a year the DevOps report, the Agile report, the Active report, the Lean report, as a PDF, and people download it and read it, where they have interviewed a couple of thousand people all over the world, asking them questions. How do you work? How do you not work? What do you do? What do you don't do? And they realized that there was 4 measurements that was the common denominator between all the very successful companies. Other companies do these as well. So it's not a success factor as in, ooh, let's measure this and we will be successful. But all we can say was that all the successful companies measure these. So there are 4 or 5 main key measurements that you should measure. One is lead time. How much time does it take for something to go through our flow, from idea until the customer actually notices a difference? We need to know that. One of the things that Agile has put forward in this is MVPs. For us to be able to get feedback as soon as possible from the customers, we tend to do minimum viable products, MVP. They will shorten the lead time. Instead of building the whole enchilada at once, build a very small piece, try it out with customers. Very short lead time gives us feedback really fast and the possibility to adapt. The next one is deployment frequency. How often do we actually deploy to production? With shorter lead times, we have the possibility to deploy value to the customers more often. And that gives us the possibility to get more feedback faster and to adapt, to go through our short lead times and then deploying again. Changes, changes, changes. A four-letter acronym. Mean time to restore. How much time does it take for us to restore the service whenever there's an error in it? If we deploy something to production and it fails, how much time does it take for us to restore it? And of course, different systems, different areas of business, different kinds of IT needs different time to restore. If you're running a website and you post something on it and it's wrong, the mean time to restore is probably less than a minute, because all you have to do is open the CMS, change the comma to a period, and you're done. If you're working within banking, it might be that an error in the front end has gone all the way through backend system, middleware systems, databases, everything. And failures there can propagate to become huge. And that takes a little longer to restore. But we need to know how much time does it take for us in average to restore from a failure. And that also brings us to the last one. How often do we actually fail in production because of something we have changed? Whenever we deploy something, how often do we fail? And that could be both technical bugs or something making the applications not working, but it could also be it's working, but not as intended. That's also a change failure. We changed something, but it wasn't right, even though it works. Everything is spinning up. It's the performance are good, but the button had the wrong color. Okay, that's also a change failure. The fifth key measurement is uptime. I'm assuming you all count that, but it's actually one of those that all successful companies count or measure. All right. To find out about lead times and so on, we could use tools or practices. Look out for something called CPOC or value stream mapping. You want to do those even when looking at your entire development flow as well. So Google those. So where to start? A lot of you have probably already started with looking at continuous integration, for example, in the tech area, but you need to broaden your perspective a bit. I hope I got that through. Look at the whole flow. So first, look at, okay, are we a fit for DevOps? No need to map the whole flow if you don't handle the flow yourself. If all you do is buy software as a service from other suppliers, if you think they're slow, have them look at DevOps, but you don't have to. You sort of need to, you need to have a flow to analyze it. And whenever you do, are there effects to be reached that is worth the time to change? Also a place to be honest. Start measuring things. Doesn't have to be the 5 things I spoke of in the last slide. It could be other things. Measure stuff. Know where you're at. You need to know your current situation to be able to know what improvement would be and how to improve and what improvement is like. Where are we when we have improved? Would it give us value to improve in this area? Maybe. Or it would give more value to improve in this area. If so, choose that one. To be able to know if you're fit for DevOps, you need to measure and you need to actually map the flow. You might decide that, okay, this is not a flow that we need to optimize or we can't optimize it. Okay, but you need to map it first to know. Work in iterations, not only development sprints, do all your improvements and changes in iterations. Try out something very small, evaluate it. When you get the feedback, decide, okay, where do we go next? Start small. There might be challenges, of course. We as consultants have seen a lot of them in different organizations. Some tend to be quite general, actually. One of the biggest challenges is decision. Someone somewhere have decided that, ooh, let's go with Agile, or ooh, let's go with DevOps. But the decision hasn't been done by someone higher up in the organization, or not with the right people, or only in one team. We need to decide. We need to create a sense of urgency that, okay, this is needed. We're all going to go here. Let's go. And that means we need the backing from management. And we don't need this, yeah, you can go DevOps or you can work Agile if you want, just don't involve us. We need their involvement, we need their commitment, and we need their approval. Otherwise, we're going to have a hard time. Handle change. Whenever we get feedback, we need to handle that change in some way or another. In Agile iterations, we handle it through our ceremonies, through Scrum. And in a DevOps environment, we need to have some sort of process for keeping track of, okay, we got this feedback, how should we adapt? Should we adapt? And when should we adapt and where? We need a process for that. Take care of that. And make sure you can have someone or a group of people that actually can handle the change, not only process-wise, but also people-wise. Very important. Another challenge is tech. We might be in a tech stack that doesn't allow us to either, it's very easy to just say, yeah, just use the cloud. That's very nice. Yeah, it works for us. Very nice. However, some organizations are not allowed to use clouds. Government authorities, for example, by law. So evaluate your tech stack and find out what is possible to do. I mean, if we have a big enough impediment to change the tech stack, well, let's do it, or let's start discussing it. But start small, work in iterations, do the small things that you actually can do, dig where you stand, all that. Another thing is grabbing too big of a bite. Start small. It's probably not a good idea to have the whole company sitting in one room and everyone says, okay, from tomorrow, we're all DevOps. Okay, where do we start? I don't know. It's a huge change. It will be done in 10 years. Go ahead, start tomorrow. Start small, start in one team, start in a part of a team, start in one department. Try to optimize there to see whatever they can do and use the learnings you get from those to move it out to other parts of the company. Start small, work in iterations. And one of these is that lack of knowledge. As we can see, there are plenty of definitions on what even DevOps is. Is it a role? Is it a profession? Is it a team? Is it a server? Is it a framework? Is it a mindset? If we tell the organization just to become DevOps, we're screwed, because people will have their own definition on what DevOps is, and they will become DevOps, but not the same DevOps. Have people know the same thing about where you're going. Very important. And of course, you can do that by taking courses. We do them, others do them. But have people have the same definition on everything. So I see we're quite running out of time. There were a few questions coming in on beforehand. Have there been any other questions, Mia?
There's a long one in the chat.
Okay.
It's more like a discussion and question.
Factor lead time and quality that I think needs more emphasis is the time it takes for team members to synchronize their mental model of the business problem. When the team is synchronized, my perception is that speed and quality is 4 to 5 times compared to when it was at its worst. It's not specific to DevOps, but I perceive it as a very influential factor. What's your experience of strategies that could help shorten the time from that a new product idea is being made aware to the team until the team has a synchronized mental model that allows efficient communication and low ratio of client dissatisfaction due to misunderstandings of what the business needs? Conceptual modeling. Ooh, we could probably talk very long about that one, but to give a short answer, this sort of goes with the thinking of cross-functional teams, having a less ditch between business and IT, having a product owner that knows pretty much all there is to know about the product, and handling the gap here between ideas and when we first start planning it into sprints. That's key. In Agile, we handle it through product ownership, which is a crucial role to succeed in Agile. But it's also a very good role to have in a DevOps environment as well, because as we could see, Agile focuses here, Ops focuses here, and these parts are kind of left out. So I would say, as a short answer, shorten the lead times, have the team as involved as possible from the start. If you're sort of handling a requirement specification to the team saying, hey, this is what the business wants, go, then you should be improving. We need to have at least some parts of the team involved in the idea process as well. Okay, is this possible? Can we do this? What would be a better solution? What do we know about the customer? And at least the product owner should be in those parts, but preferably the team. I don't know if that's an answer. Really.
Thank you. We have another one. Maybe you can read it as well from Ludwig.
Yeah, 3113 is not a specific quote. It's used generally when discussing cross-team knowledge sharing. I saw something similar where they use 6116. Yeah, probably. To me, I think 6 is quite a big number for people to be, I mean, it's all the focus of T-shapes. We're experts at one thing, and we are at least to some point knowledgeable in some areas. If we create this T-bar being too long, then it would be on the expense of this part. So to me, 3113 is quite good, but rule of thumb, not a rule.
Thank you. And I see that the time is, yeah, it's 11:30. So we totally understand that people need to leave. Do we have any last questions to Martin?
There were 2 questions that had come in before.
Yeah, exactly. We have this one is how long will DevOps be a profession?
Yeah, and I quite don't agree that it's a profession from my point of view. DevOps is a mindset or a framework to handle the entire flow from idea to customer. And it's very popular to call the people working in this box for DevOps. Hey, I'm a DevOps. Okay, but the DevOps should be more of connecting all the parts of the flow together rather than. So SRE is a very trendy title nowadays. Site Reliability Engineer, started in Google, but that's, especially with the engineer on the end, means it's more tech related, tech focused. And the last question, is the DevOps role just an evolution of the systems engineering profession? And is DevOps a temporary specialization? Is it worth it to become an ops? I mean, looking at this flow, knowledge in this area will always be needed and it will always be appreciated. We will not be able to automate everything. And we also need people to set up the environments where we automate stuff. So ops will always be needed. However, with cross-functional teams, we might want to have the ops people working in the dev teams as well. And it all comes back to the T-shape, because it means that you could be the specialist in ops, but you might also need other knowledge as well, databases, front end, testing, whatever.
Thank you. And we have some comments, but I think it's more like discussion, but you maybe want to read it anyway.
In my experience, we are getting everything from what is happening in the US. I agree. SRE was coined by Google by the book in 2016 and has popped up into Sweden the last 1.5 years. Yep. The trend in the US since the last year I have seen is an incredible short time to market. So you have to get stuff up and run very fast. Sub 2-3 months from nothing, and leverage the public clouds for it. Yep. I think that supports what I've said. Unless, hook me up after and we will discuss it. But I think I agree.
Okay, everyone. Thank you for the questions and thank you for sharing your thoughts. Oh, one more. Good people.
Are there any examples of successful automation CI/CD flows built by non-cross-functional teams, or automate always means cross-function? No, it doesn't. When I worked as a systems developer, we actually had a very good ops team that, in cooperation with us as an agile team, created all the nice CI/CD pipelines because they realized they needed to. Otherwise, we would use another supplier. So we weren't cross-functional in the way that we always had an ops guy in the team. But we had knowledge sharing, so we were able to deploy stuff and release stuff through the pipelines and manually if needed. But we didn't have a dedicated ops guy. So it's not black or white. Cross-functionality is the goal, but a lot of things obviously can be done without being true cross-functional. Yeah, I have built multiple CI/CD flows that I was handling the infrastructure inside one team. Yeah. So, I mean, it works. It's a lot of the things I have said is the ultimate goals, and it's not black and white. We can do a lot of things over time anyways without fully adhering to all the principles. But that is generally like an internal platform as a service. Yes. And it goes back to the decoupling points. In my example, we decided that, okay, these parts is done by someone else. So then the cross-functionality within the team had to handle those parts and not those parts. Strategic questions, definitely. Yep.
Okay, great, everyone. I will just inform you that we will send an email to Martin afterwards if you want to ask him more questions or discuss anything. We will also send a link to the company Onbird if you want to read more about what they do and what they can help you with. As you notice, we have recorded this, so we will also share the recording afterwards if you want to look at it again or share it with your colleagues or friends. So you will get all this in the afternoon in an email. So thank you, Martin, so much for this webinar.
Thank you.